Greetings, everyone. I'm Linda Hartling. I'm the Director of Human Dignity and Humiliation Studies, and I work in direct collaboration with our beloved founding president, Evelyn Lindner. It's great to be with you. And even though I'm not with you in person, I hope you know that I am with you in spirit, along with many, many others in our community who are working for dignity throughout the world. Today, I'm introducing open space technology, which is a creative cornerstone of our self-organizing conferences. Open space was brought to us by one of our founding members, Don Klein, a pioneer in the field of community psychology and an individual who wrote some of the earliest papers exploring the dynamics of humiliation. As we practice open space for dignity, we will remember to honor the legacy of its original creator, Harrison Owen. Human dignity and humiliation studies adopted this approach and adapted it to allow us to engage in dialogues on complex topics while emphasizing mutually respectful participation and collaboration. Our aim is to cultivate a relational climate where diverse perspectives can flourish and mutually beneficial learning and wisdom emerges. Whether you're new to open space or you have experience with this approach before, your participation will strengthen the spirit of dignity that we need to turn our dialogues into ideas for dignifying action. So it's great to be with you. Well, there's many benefits of open space. First of all, it's an opportunity to practice creative collaboration in new and exciting ways. It's also an opportunity to walk the talk of equal dignity in the spirit of Nelson Mandela. And it's a great way to practice mutually dignifying dialogue. But because it's self-organizing and we're co-creating this experience, we encourage you to be prepared to be surprised. We never know how things will turn out exactly, but we know that we'll have a lot of creativity and conversation going on throughout the conference. There are two components of the open space process. First, there's the process part, then there are the roles. And I'm going to describe them in more detail because they're so important to creating that energizing mutual learning community. The process is focused on creating the conditions for compassionate collaboration. Now, Don Klein would always remind us that we should think of the open space process as a method for capturing the creativity people often hear whenever they attend conferences and they're listening and conversing in coffee breaks. When we're chatting with each other, when we're sharing ideas, when people feel comfortable and engaged. Open space is like the spirit of coffee breaks, capturing the creativity that grows through conversation. There are 5 steps to the open space process. First, it starts with nominating ideas. What's an idea or concern relevant to our meeting topic that will inspire you to initiate a conversation? What would inspire you to host a conversation? We start out by posting those topics on papers throughout the room so everyone can see them. 2, after we've collected all of our proposals, we survey the initial interest. Now, we know there'll never be enough time, so we may have to decide which ones to combine, perhaps, which one might have to have the highest priorities, or what topics we might want to save for a later date. This is the hard work of the open space process, is setting our topics so we can cover as much as we can throughout the conference. After we have our topics, we begin to organize our order of the program and our groups. We may have one group if we're small enough. If we're larger, we may break up in multiple groups, but we have to set that agenda for the entire conference program. And then that leads us into starting the conversation. So the host, the people that propose the different topics, will be invited to call the conversation and organize their group. And finally, Step number 5 is sharing the outcome. And there are many ways to share the outcome, but we have one way that we've used in the past that's been very helpful, not only to the conference itself, but to all of us who are watching the conference at a distance. So in addition to the 5 steps, we have the 4 principles of open space that are clearly very important to the process. The first principle is whoever comes is the right people. Whoever comes to the conversation, they're the right ones to have that conversation. Whenever it starts is the right time. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have, and when it's over, it's over. So let's dive into these principles. Whoever comes is the right people. So when you get started, give some time to look around at the people who joined you for the conversation. Remember, they, including you, are the ones empowered to find the answers to questions or to explore questions that are related to that particular dialogue group. And it doesn't matter what level you have achieved. If you are there, you are the right person and you can make a difference. Whoever comes is the right people. Number 2, whenever it starts, it's the right time. So we like to remind people that usually we're already late, but that is the right dialogue time. And if you're initiating a topic, you get to decide when it's the right time to begin that topic. And you will find that the schedule overall is just a recommendation rather than a rigid schedule. This is how we escape the tyranny of time. This is how we work at the speed of dignity. Whenever it starts, it's the right time. Number 3, whatever happens is the only thing that could have. Now, this is not to say that you don't have control over what happens. It's the opposite. That which happens in this meeting is the only thing that could happen with this group in this space at this time. This is to help us be free from any regrets about, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. And finally, principle number 4, when it's over, it's over. You'll know when you've completed talking about a topic. It might be early, it might be late. The important thing is to know when it's over, it's over. And to know when it's not over, it's not over. So those are the 5 steps and the 4 principles of open space process. Now let's talk about the roles and leadership in open space. Roles mean taking responsibility for what you love to make the learning experience a useful experience for all involved. The first big role is the role of a host, or what we'll call Dignihost. This is the person who had the burning desire, who feels the passion for a subject. It's the person who is willing to take responsibility to call the conversation. It's a person who invites others in and encourages participation. And it's a person who makes sure something gets harvested. So we know some of the key points that come from the conversation. That's the role of the host or the Dignihost. Then there's the role of the collaborators. Collaborators, of course, are whoever comes, they're the right people. They're the people who are drawn to the conversation. They're the people who stay the whole time and fully participate. Those are the ever important collaborators. But there are 2 other types of contributors to our meeting in general that open space calls bumblebees. Just like bumblebees in the wild that goes from flower to flower, pollinating flowers, open space bumblebees go from meeting to meeting, from group to group, to conversation to conversation. They are cross-pollinating conversations with diverse information. So bumblebees are not being lazy, they're cross-pollinating. Then there are the butterflies, which may be a little harder to understand because they just fly around. Butterflies spend a lot of time flying. They're thinking about other experiences. Sometimes that's because butterflies' brains are really full. Sometimes they are actually the host of open space and they've got other things going on in their head. They are not being lazy, but they may need to fly around, so give them space. all of us are invited to practice the law of mobility. That means that you are responsible for how you use the time. This is your opportunity to take responsibility for what you love. If you're not contributing or learning in a group, you can use the law of 2 feet. If you're not in a group and not gaining what you would like, practice the law of 2 feet. That's the law of mobility. So those are the roles: the host, the collaborators, the bumblebees, the butterflies, and using the law of 2 feet. But here are a couple of dignifying dialogue tips that come from my mentor, Jean Baker Miller, and her husband, Mike Miller. Both of them worked on relational thinking and theory and equality in dignity. And they remind us when we engage in a conversation, it's helpful to remember, how can I deepen my understanding by listening and contributing to the conversation? Or ask yourself, how can I move the dialogue along so that we all can benefit from it and move to a new place? Most importantly, how can we listen each other into voice? A Maori oral historian in New Zealand, Carmen Hedaraka, taught us early on that speaking's great, but listening is even better. And that's why we put an emphasis on listening others into voice. But most of all, remember, be prepared to be surprised. We are eager to see what grows out of this special conference, but let's give you an example of how we harvest the great ideas. We can harvest the great ideas in multiple ways: through artwork, through a dramatic enactment, through poetry. We want you to use your creativity. And one way we've used in the past that seems to work very well, not only for the people in the room, but for the people that are joining us online, is to record a message to the world. And this typically involves 2 to 4 minutes of a dialogue that's grown out of the initial conversation, usually with 2 people in conversation. It's not like making a list of what was said or the highlights. It's about having a conversation that's a reflection on the ideas that grew out of the dialogue. And I have a short clip as an example. It's a clip with Ronhild Nielsen and Evelyn Linder.
My dear Ronhild,
Yes.
your artist name is Arctic Queen. And when I look at you, then I see a social sculpture, a psychological sculpture, a sculpture of life, a sculpture that expresses dignity and love in all its aspects. And you have so many aspects. You have. So my first question to you: if you think of a global university, a global dignity university, world dignity university, a global place for learning about dignity, what would you like to contribute?
I hear the humming of voices coming in from all over the world, from different traditions and cultures. And when we then start singing together or even dancing together, this will be in such a harmony and flow, reaching out to each other's hands, which is dignifying. This is what I hear. As a musician, I don't see, I hear.
Right. Yeah. And I know that you are using your voice in a very, very special way.
Yeah.
Could you
Well,
explain that?
you know, the different cultures have different traditions for using their voices. And one tradition that is in Norway or even the Nordic countries, and often the Aboriginal people have used it, it's called yoik.
Yeah.
And that is that you get in touch with the energy of a person, or even it can be a bird or a stone, and you connect to this and you sing, and in that way you honor what is in this relationship. So if I should, for example, sing the relationship that is between us two now, we could start with the calmness in the situation,
Serenity?
The serenity, yes. So it could be something like Hinneya moyaleya Khtahidu yomoyandi Khtayandedo yamayayati Elawoyo yambaidi.
So that's an example of a mini video that shares the outcome that was a surprising gift to all of us. That's our open space process for dignity. There are many other ways to practice this type of approach. It's really up to you. The format is highly flexible. We like to think it promotes dignifying dialogue and emphasizes mutual respect and participation and collaboration. It generates opportunities for personal connections, and it creates space for sharing ideas that can be turned into action in the world. So I'm going to leave you with those 5 steps. I hope they will help you get started on this adventure. I'm wishing you the very best with every step that you take in this meeting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes of your conversation. I'm sending you the warmest wishes. Thank you for joining us in this journey to advance the dignity of all people and the planet.